Deep in the Appalachian Mountains lies Hollow Creek, a village abandoned for decades. But the silence is deceiving. Every shadow moves. Every whisper hides a secret. The Haunting of Hollow Creek. Part 1. Rafik hadn't set foot in Hollow Creek for over 15 years. Nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains, the village was hidden behind dense forests and rolling hills, almost swallowed by the earth itself. Stories of missing travelers and restless spirits had shaped his childhood memories, whispered in hushed tones by his grandmother. Now, standing at the edge of the overgrown road leading into the village, Rafik felt an oppressive silence pressing down on him. The dirt road twisted unnaturally, guiding him deeper into the heart of the village. Each step sent shivers down his spine, accompanied by faint whispers carried by the wind. Shadows stretched in impossible ways among the crumbling houses, moving just out of the corner of his eye. Rafik reached the first abandoned house. Its wooden door, weathered by decades of rain and sun, creaked loudly under his touch. Inside, he saw remnants of lives long gone, broken furniture, scattered belongings, and faded sketches of children etched into the walls. A sudden gust slammed the door behind him, making him jump. He was not alone. A figure emerged from the dim shadows. It was Shirin, her eyes carrying the weight of countless sleepless nights. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, trembling. "Hollow Creek does not forgive the living easily." "Shirin, I had to know the truth," Rafik replied. "About my father, about what happened here." She hesitated, her gaze falling to the floor. "It's not your fault you were left in the dark. But the Hollow, it remembers, it sees, and it wants its stories told, through fear, through blood." Suddenly, a scream echoed from the far end of the village, hollow and bone-chilling. It carried across the fog-laden streets, making their hearts pound violently. The air grew heavier, pressing down on their chests like an unseen hand. "We have to leave," Shirin said, gripping Rafik's arm. But before they could move, the ground beneath them trembled. From the shadows, a low, guttural growl rose, a sound no human throat could produce. Rafik wanted to run, but curiosity rooted him to the spot. Slowly, he stepped forward. And there, in the center of the village, he saw it, the Hollow Watcher, a dark, shifting mass with glowing eyes that pierced through the fog. It moved without legs, gliding over the ground like liquid shadow, and the air around it carried a suffocating cold that drained life itself. Shirin's hand tightened on his shoulder. "Do not look into its eyes," she warned. "If it sees you, it will take pieces of your soul until nothing remains." Hours seemed to pass in endless darkness. Every corner held whispers, every broken window hid unseen eyes, and every gust of wind carried memories too horrific to comprehend. Rafik realized that Hollow Creek was alive, but not in the way living beings are. It lived through torment, fear, and the restless spirits who had never left. As dawn threatened to break, Rafik felt the weight of generations of terror pressing on him. The village's secret was not just in its ghosts, but in the dark ritual that had cursed it centuries ago. And now, as the first pale light of morning seeped through the fog, he understood one undeniable truth. Some places are abandoned for a reason, and some horrors are better left untouched. Part 2. Rafik and Shirin explored the village cautiously, their footsteps muffled by thick moss and fallen leaves. The abandoned church stood at the center, its steeple leaning as though bowing under centuries of neglect. Inside, faded hymn books and broken pews spoke of lives once full of hope. On the pulpit, a diary lay unopened. Rafik's hands trembled as he turned the brittle pages. The diary belonged to Elder Morgan, the village's last spiritual leader. It told of a centuries-old pact between Hollow Creek's founders and a dark force known only as the Hollow Watcher. The founders, desperate to protect their harvests and lands, had performed a ritual using blood and fear, binding a shadowy entity to the village. Over the years, the Hollow Watcher grew stronger, feeding on greed, betrayal, and death, until the village was abandoned entirely. Shirin revealed that her parents had tried to escape, only to be claimed by the Hollow Watcher, leaving her as the sole survivor. It's drawn to blood, she explained, especially if it's tied to those who've tried to end its curse. Your father, he tried to break it. That's why it's hunting you. Rafiq's heart pounded. Then, it's not just a ghost, he whispered. It's something far older, far darker. As they moved through the village square, whispers followed them, growing louder, more insistent. Shadows flickered at the corners of their vision, forming shapes that seemed almost human faces, twisted in eternal agony, reaching out with invisible hands. Each gust of wind carried screams, some human, some something else entirely. They reached the old mill by the river, its wheel long rotted. Shirin's flashlight caught something on the wall, a symbol drawn in ash, identical to one Elder Morgan had described in his diary. This marks where the ritual began, she said. It's the center of the Hollow Watcher's power. Suddenly, a cold wind surged through the mill, extinguishing their lights. Rafiq felt a presence behind him, a breath colder than ice. He turned slowly, and the Hollow Watcher materialized its black form, stretching higher than the rafters, eyes glowing red. It spoke without words, a sound in his mind. You cannot leave. You belong to Hollow Creek now. Rafiq's mind raced. The only way to survive was to confront the ritual's origin and destroy the binding symbols before the Hollow Watcher consumed him completely. But first, he needed more answers. Part 3. The pair ventured to the forest bordering the village, where Elder Morgan had once performed the ritual to summon the Hollow Watcher. The trees were gnarled and blackened, and the fog hung like a living veil. Here, the air was heavy with the scent of decay, and faint whispers urged them to turn back. They discovered an underground chamber, hidden beneath a rotting cabin. Inside, relics of the ritual lay untouched, candles, bone fragments, and ancient markings etched deep into stone. Rafiq realized the Hollow Watcher was not a spirit bound by grief. It was a predator bound by magic, feeding on fear itself. Shirin began chanting lines from Morgan's diary, attempting to reverse the spell. The Hollow Watcher's roar shook the chamber, its shadowy tendrils lashing out. The walls seemed to close in, and Rafiq struggled to keep his focus. Sweat dripped down his face, and every instinct screamed at him to run. But he could not. He had to finish what his father had started. Part 4. The Hollow Watcher emerged fully, a black mass with glowing red eyes, towering and relentless. Its voice echoed in the chamber, twisting their minds with memories of loved ones, pain and regret. Rafiq and Shirin continued the ritual, breaking the symbols one by one, chanting louder and louder as the shadows shrieked in fury. The entity lunged at them, but with the final chant, the chamber erupted in light. Shadows screamed, twisting, writhing, and then silence. The Hollow Watcher had vanished, leaving only a faint residue of cold in the air. Rafiq collapsed to the ground, gasping. Shirin rested a hand on his shoulder. It's over, she whispered. At least, for now. The village remained abandoned, the fog slowly lifting. But Rafiq knew Hollow Creek would never be truly safe. The darkness had been weakened, not destroyed. And somewhere, in the shadows beyond the forest, the Hollow Watcher waited, patient and eternal. Months later, Rafiq returned to the city, but the village haunted his dreams. Shadows flickered in the corners of his apartment, Whispers taunted him when he was alone. He knew the Hollow Watcher was still out there, waiting for the next intruder. Hollow Creek had claimed generations, and it would claim more. But Rafik had survived this time. He understood the curse, the fear, and the dark hunger that thrived in abandoned places. He also knew a chilling truth. Some places are abandoned for a reason, and some horrors, once awakened, never truly leave. The end.